Standards and Accreditation Bill, third reading.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Paul Goldsmith.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Standards and Accreditation Bill be now read a third time. The Standards and Accreditation Bill will put in place new arrangements for New Zealand's standards and conformance system. This will ensure that the system is viable and well-functioning and responsive to the needs of business, consumers and regulators into the foreseeable future. Since becoming Minister of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, I've had the pleasure of progressing a number of bills and regulations to improve the regulation of New Zealand's commercial systems, including the Accounting Infrastructure Reporting Act 2015, Financial Markets Conduct Regulations, release of the Responsible Lending Code, regulations implementing the Credits Contracts and Consumer Finance Amendment Act 2014, and now the Standards and Accreditation Bill 2014. This bill establishes new arrangements for standards development and approval and updates the institutional arrangements for the Testing Laboratory Registration Council to better reflect the nature of its functions. This speech gives me a final opportunity to emphasise some of the key aspects of the new arrangements before the House. I want to emphasise the independence built into the new standards arrangements. Standards will be approved by an independent statutory board, the New Zealand's Standards Approval Board. Collectively, the board must have knowledge of standards and the sectors that use standards. The board will be guided by decision-making criteria in the legislation when considering proposed standards and members of standards development committees. Standards development will be the responsibility of the New Zealand Standards Executive and an independent statutory officer within the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. Both the board and the Standards Executive will have statutory independence. Neither is subject to the direction of ministers. I'm confident there is sufficient independence built into the new arrangements to preserve the robust reputation of New Zealand standards. Further, the Standards Executive is required to continue using independent committees of technical experts to develop standards. The bill requires standards development committees to have balanced representation from interested stakeholders such as industry, consumer and worker representatives and regulators. This remains consistent with current practice and reflects international and domestic expectations. I have heard stakeholder concerns and I am confident stakeholder representation in committees will be appropriately broad. The need to place the standard system on a sustainable financial footing was one of the key drivers for change. The bill does this by strengthening the current cost recovery model. The Standards Executive will be able to negotiate arrangements that cover the full life cycle of standards, balancing initial development and approval costs with ongoing costs for maintenance and access. Locating standards development function within the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment will also provide efficiencies and scalability that is simply not possible in a small standalone entity. The other drivers of change were to ensure standards are responsive to user needs and to ensure closer alignment and contribution of standards to health and safety, productivity, innovation and international trade for the benefit of New Zealand. And I am assured that the provisions in this bill are sensible and will be implemented effectively by officials. New Zealand's engagement with the International Standards Organisation remains important. This bill will build on the robust international reputation of New Zealand standards and the involvement of New Zealand in the international standards arena. New Zealand is and will continue to be an active member of the International Organisation for Standardisation and International Electro-Technical Commission. Standards will continue to be developed in accordance with international directives and expectations. Worldwide, a number of models for standards development are used. Many countries locate the standards development function within a government agency. The institutional arrangements for standards in New Zealand need to be fit for purpose for New Zealand's own circumstances. The bill expressly provides for New Zealand to continue the important function of contributing to standards development by international bodies and other national standards bodies. The bill provides for New Zealand to nominate members to other standard development committees, to attend international meetings of standard organisations, and to contribute to the work of other standard bodies. In relation to accreditation, the bill updates the provisions of the Testing Laboratory Registration Act 1972 to reflect the contemporary nature of the functions of the Testing Laboratory Registration Council, which relate to accreditation of testing and inspection services. The bill will also rename the Council as the Accreditation Council. I once again thank those who submitted to the Commerce Committee and the committee itself for producing useful commentary in only 4 months. As I said in my second reading speech, my view is that the bill is stronger for having been through the Select Committee process. I'm confident that the bill can provide a sustainable, responsive standards and conformance system which meets the needs of business, consumers and regulators and contributes to the health and safety and prosperity of New Zealanders, both now and into the future. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to.